No, when I saw there's another new launch that's coming up, right, and that's in the Lentor area, right, I literally like roll my eyes. I mean, just kidding lah. I mean, that shows actually how many new launches are there in this area nowadays. But then again, right, I look at the land price, right, and it stopped me, you know. So it's literally, right, the cheapest land in the whole whole Lentor area, whole Lentor story, you know. So I went deeper, you know, into the resale prices and also try to work out on the supply pipelines and all of it lah, to see whether like cheap lands is equivalent to actually a good buy for investors or not. So spoiler, it all comes down to actually one number, and I will tell you exactly what that number is in the later part of the video. So here's number one. Everything starts with the land cost, because the land cost is what tied to the price. So the cheaper the developers buys, the more cushion is sit between you and your losses. That's how I see lah. So here's every Lentor plot the government have ever sold, like roughly 8 of them. So Lentor Gardens, like the King's Fort site, actually came in at around like $920 per square foot per plot ratio. Cheapest of them all. And the very next parcel is about $27.80, a record of a 39% more for the land you could actually walk to in like 5 minutes, you know. So before you think that King's Fort is just got lucky and low boring, right? Actually, they didn't. The second bidders was around like 1.6% behind. That's about like $920, like real market tested price, you know. But if that's the case, right, I think it's a bull case, and it's really a strong one. Real quick, before actually we go down to the data and statistics, right, I will actually give you like the case against it and things that most agents actually won't tell you about, like the per square foot that actually I will stop my investors from buying. So if you like this video, hit the subscribe button. Cheap land doesn't automatically mean cheap for you. So what's exactly like what actually hits your price tag is that we feel that it might actually hit around like 2150 or 2200 PSF ideally. So if you put that like next to the neighboring projects, right, around like 2200 PSF, right, a compact bedroom will price around 1.4 million, and then a 3-bedroom is slightly under 2 million per term. So example is like for HDB upgraders that actually sold their Omokyo flat, right, the math actually works out quite well lah. So actually they can actually upgrade comfortably lah from then on. But of course, this is where, right, I will actually slow you down, because you know there's a ceiling sitting above like this whole market. Because the Showflat, right, will never actually show you that, like, because like example, Lentor Modern, the one project that actually like finished and sitting right on top of the MRT lah, and with its own integrated mall, and then now owners are actually reselling now, right, at an average of 2,380 PSF. Lentor Mansion, the premium one, has listings from around like 2,360 PSF to around 2,800 or 2,900 PSF, or the high side lah. So even Lentor Hills, right, its first resale, right, crossed at around like 2,276 PSF. So sitting with that, right, can say the second best or one of the best located already built project in the estate, right, clears the resale around like 2,300 to 2,400 PSF now already. So if we look at like Lentor Gardens, right, a newer for sure lah project lah, and but also slightly a little bit further from the MRT station compared to some of the developments there. No integrated mall, built by a developer like that is actually doing their first ever project like in Lentor itself lah. So if King's Fort, right, price it above around like 2,300 or above lah, you're actually like paying the what I call the resale floor price. Yeah, so actually it's still not too bad, but I think that's the borderline. And remember, right, their land, right, is actually the cheapest in the entire estate there. So if there is no land cost reason to actually charge you for the premium, here's my line, like really bluntly. If Lentor Gardens launch around 2,100 to 2,200 PSF, I think it's generally a good buy for own stay upgraders and some of the investors as well, depending on what you need or what facing. And also, the cheap land is actually doing its job, because 2,200 to 2,300, right, PSF, right, is actually quite fair for like both developers and also for investors or homestay buyers. So if you're actually paying for, like, of course, it's a new project, so you pay around that price, I feel it's quite fair for both sides. But the second, right, it crosses 2,300 PSF, right, for me, personally, right, I think it stops being a good deal already. And I usually will actually walk out. Because the cheap land have originally, right, designed to actually protect you, because, you know, they pay at 920, but now, since they price it higher, so the cheap land actually doesn't really help already. Yeah, it stops protecting you, and you are just an exit buyer hoping that the next person will pay even higher. For the home itself, right, it's not really nothing, but Lentor is actually like minutes walks away. okay, on the like Thompson East Coast line, okay, and also straight shot towards like Orchard and then Marina Bay, you know, and more also next door, Omokyo Hub, Thomson Plaza, all close by. They also have proper schools like CHIJ, Nicholas, Anderson Primary School. You also have a what I call like a future park lah. So there are also plenty of units and also those greenery areas, and then of course a little bit of good views. So livability is actually not an issue. It's only down to the price. That's what I state. So let's talk about the actual home, right? And this is where walking the show flats, right, really earns its keep lah. So because the floor plan never really tells you like the whole truth. So you really need to go down there physically to see roughly how does the show flat looks like. Although not all layouts are there, but at least you can roughly see how some of the layouts looks like. So there are 499 units, right? And I think roughly half of them are two beders already. So it's standing inside one, right? Usually it's a dumbbell layout. What they advertise is like, it's of course 2 bedrooms sitting at the opposite ends with the living room in between, and then you're not already like squeezed down at the hallway. So actually the space efficiency is actually there. The kitchens is actually a separate alcove with actually cooler and grower fittings. Yeah, plus of course some smart little niche they tuck in for the storage or study also lah. So that's actually quite smart. I think the master bedroom can actually take king size bed lah. And of course a common room, a queen size, really not too bad. Interestingly, right, it's the only Lentor project, right, not built with what I call the prefabricated PPVC system. So in layman terms, in simpler terms, you can hack the internal walls later. So the layout, right, you buy, right, isn't the one that you are stuck with. So that is quite good. A slightly more flexible layout. So example, you want to have a larger living room, you have a bigger TV away from the sofa, that's where all the flexible layouts actually come into play. So where I actually take notice is that, right, if example you want 4 bedrooms, example you have 2 kids, right, and you're actually fighting over like 100 units so there's not too many, okay, for 4 bedrooms, but I think ideally it's still okay lah. So now is the thing, right, that actually worries me more than the developer, right. I think one thing a lot of investors actually take note is that it's the supply It's oversupply to be honest. Whether the demand can absorb the supply or not, it's hard to say. It's hard to say really. Because you see, everyone's actually like collecting their keys around like 2027 onwards, and then alone, right, you already got like Lentor Mansion, Hewlett Green, Lentor Real, all competing over like, I think there's a good like 1,200 homes like hitting the rental and the resale market, like basically all at the same time, Then not to account for like Springleaf, although it's like one stop away but another 900 plus units Oh my god, there's like a tsunami of units coming out, chasing the tenants and the buyers at the same time. So actually the worry is there I mean, you also can see the youth nowadays also. Like you see Lentor Modern are renting out, you roughly can check the listing and the past transaction, you roughly know how much they actually rent out already. So close to around 3%. So the margin is also a little bit thinner on the bigger units because not many people can rent out. So for the price for Lentor Gardens, right, if it's too high, right, then the youth, right, gets squeezed even more. So here's the honest counter, right, whether it matters or not, is like the estate is basically done already. So Lentor Gardens, right, is actually the second to last plot So government will actually ever sell in this area. So after the final one, right, then roughly that's it already. So a parcel all sold, right, then there's no more land coming up, or maybe there's a few more in the nearby. Not too sure, we have to check on that. Yeah, so once this supply wave actually clears, right, it's actually tapped for years. How long? Maybe years, or maybe 2 years, 3 years. Yeah. But of course, if you can hold that supply, right, past 2028, of course the scarcity actually will swings back to your side And then the good thing is because your development is also one of the last few so you TOP later, by the time all the people sell already, and you want a newer project at about the same price, people might consider the fact that it's the newer project and willing to pay. Yeah, they'll consider the fact it's a newer project So if it's same price, people will actually go for Lentor Gardens compared to the earlier TOP project. And of course, the track record, right, actually backs the demand side also So across Lentor's like 6 condos, right, about 95% of the units were already snapped up already beforehand. Before actually this one actually going to launch in July. So that's actually a good news. So when it's priced right, these estates actually can absorb everything, That's what I feel I think it will do well on launch day itself. And that's not actually just a forecast, because it actually happens before for like Lentor Central, which has happened last year. This is why I say, right, that one of the biggest factor here, right, like we can say about all the transformations, the amenities, all this, right, really all comes down to entry price. Entry price is the number one, like I think the qualifying factor to whether or not I will recommend my investor to invest in this project or not. Yeah, the rest is all risk that stacks up behind that. Then now we're going to talk about Kingsford. I think it's a capable developers but it's their first project in Lentor. And of course, I did see that, of course, they have some past complaints on the finishing. Yeah, so actually, it's really best, right? We go down there, right, physically to see if like the finishings and all these are your main concern. Like, I don't know whether developers will develop this project or not. Then it's best to go down there and really take a look and then feel for yourself whether or not this is the project that you want to purchase. And also, it's a 99-year leasehold, not a freehold, 99 years old leasehold. So you won't get your case until around like 2030. Yeah. Then of course you have to stay in your current place or rent a place outside. In the meantime, if this is your second property, then that's great. You can see that, right, for this development, right, it's actually a 2-bedroom heavy. So it's a mixed cut both ways. Actually, it's easy to rent. But the thing is, right, I think there's a lot of supply out there. It's easy to rent due to the price quantum. But if the supply is flooding, right, the resale later, right, like in the later market, right, then it won't be easy to rent or easy to sell already. That's like the logic behind that. Yeah. So something that's a legit concern that investors have to look on it. Because yeah, that's something that you either will rent out or you sell it to flip it. So all these are a big concern for investors. But for homestay, right, then I think it won't affect you that much, because you probably will stay 5 to 10 years, and by then the supply, I think, will actually, the number of listings will actually go down already. So despite, right, the data, right, actually shows that to go for it but it's only like if you want to stay in the north area, and if you are actually buying 2 to 3 bedroom and actually living in it, and you can hold past the psychological barrier of like 5 to 8 years, then I think it's okay to invest in. But if not, right, then if you need space now, or you need something that TOP is earlier, before 2028, right, or stretching to get in, right, yeah, then I feel it might not be suitable for you. My number, right, is right. If it's above 2,300 PSF, right, I'm out. Usually, I will not put it as a good buy development. Something that I will consider if I'm staying, as usual, as I repeated earlier. But if I think anything below 2,200 is still a good buy. So everything in between is your call. It's supposed to be your call. So this video is all about, if I come in from an investor perspective, this is what I might do if this is my own cash. Like really, not as an agent, as an investor perspective. That's why I do this video. Backed by statistics, data. So these are some things that I will let my clients know before they actually go down. So they will save that trip down if it doesn't hit their criteria. So if you like this video, right, do me a favor. Do subscribe to my videos. I do break down some of these big launches based on investors' perspective that I feel that it's actually have a good entry price. Because good entry price usually have higher upside potential, unless the high PSF do not have. So you tell me straight in the comments, right? So what's your walk away numbers on these Lentor Gardens? So I'm interested to know what are the numbers. Is it oversupply really is like a big problem that you won't even want to enter into this one, or you have a price in mind that, hey, if I hit this price, I might consider. Let me know in the comments below. I'll catch you in the next video the next time. Peace out.